Okay. Okay, and on the mute all and start the recording. Very good. Did that. And Mike, you have a little presentation for us about Nepal. Okay, let's see if I can get this right.
Look at that.
Okay. And we'll find the Nepal. And we'll see what happened. All through and slideshow and from the beginning. There, take.
Alrighty. Well, our wonderful club has invested in a project in Nepal, and they sent some pictures. They're sort of in the middle of the project. They actually made a video that sent a link to good enough, and hopefully you'll be able to see it. It's a 5-minute video of the location. That's pretty amazing area. So this global grant intends to bring sustainable change in water, sanitation, and hygiene status based in 3 schools. And along with the construction and renovation of the water and sanitation infrastructures, they intend to change behavior around these things. So it's a pretty bold endeavor, actually. They're going to try to shift traditional culture in this area. There's a lot of ethnic groups there, and this one is one that has to deal with they banish women that are menstruating from their house. So you can't socialize, they can't share meals, they can't go to school, they can't do anything while they're menstruating. So this thing, I mean, now they have other options, and they're trying to fix things up. And along the way, they're also fixing up toilets at the school. So this is kind of before pictures. I try to imagine telling some kid, you know, here's the bathroom. Be sure to shut the door, you know, there's no window. Anyway, they fixing that. Here's more kind of on the before along the top, and then the renovation on each of those shown along the bottom. So they're cleaner and nicer than we started. And a couple of them are kind of beyond repair, so they just built new ones. And their approach to this, called the 7 flag approach to total sanitation, and it's something that was worked out and schemed out by the World Health Organization. They have a country project in Nepal, and so they got all this framework figured out. And at each school, they divide kids up into 7 different sanitation teams. So different aspects of the teams are handled by each of them. And so there's safe and clean water. There's specific hygiene things like washing your hands or use the toilet. Not everybody does in that part of the world. So they're moving on that front. So this kind of depicts the beginning where they're orienting the students and getting them organized into these teams. And that big group there is observing National Sanitation Day. I didn't know there was a thing, but apparently, at least in Nepal, there is one. So it affects the community as well as the kids and the staff at these schools. And here's the 7 teams. And each of those sashes, the different color that represents a different aspect of the project. And there's a captain and a vice captain for each team. And the adults in there are teachers or other staff. So here's the hand washing demonstration. And yes, the whole thing about the menstruation thing. So what they're doing here is making the ones that you can wash. And it's something that works in this area because they have plenty of water, but Joyce was telling me this is not a universally acceptable approach because in some places like India and the outback, there's not enough water. It takes a lot of water to wash these. And I know Wayne would love this. Safe food is part of the deal, and so they carve this little terrace out of the hillside and they're playing garden, a school garden there, and grow vegetables. So another piece of it. And look, there are 7 flags. So each of the colors represents those teams. And the position of the flag on the pole shows how they've advanced towards the objectives of that team. Right? They've got a visual way of showing progress. And I couldn't resist throwing in this other slide. Is that on the side there, there's students just paying attention, and but in the upper one up there, the teacher is actually playing a musical instrument, and I was hoping Linton would be here because he brought one in like that. I don't know if you remember, it was, you know, it was one that you pumped the air through. There you are. See that? You played one, right? You own one. And then this just shows this bottom one's the terrain where they live. So they're not above the tree line. And it's steep. Not like Casadero, right? So if you want more information about this, there's a YouTube link I can send you that's from the World Health Organization of Paul, sort of explaining this program and how they're going to do it. But taking on our cultural norms is a big deal. A lot of this is public health, so that's it. That's your project in Nepal.
Well, thank you. Rotary doing great work around the world.
Help you switch back.
That would be nice. Thank you very much. There we go. Oh, that went well. Thank you. Okay. All right, David, we have a couple of things going on. Do you want to come on up?
Yes, I do. Kind of quiet in here today, President. So Diana.
Well, I can ask everybody to chitter chatter and talk over you if you want.
Yeah.
No.
Count on it. This thing running. Like on the paper.
Do you want this one? We're maybe is that one more?
Turn it on. Turn it on. There you go. Hand me a dead mic. All right. Now it's working. There we go. Yeah, I was kind of saying it's a little bit quiet in here, but I saw that I was being quiet too. So we were afforded an opportunity to host an additional inbound exchange student next year. And this student will come from Africa. The black area, what was referred to me as the black areas of Africa. So this will be a student that will come from Tanzania, Uganda, something like that. And so this is an opportunity for us to kind of work together and have a student come to our community and be a part of us. And then we will have 2 next year. So being a little bit nervous about that because it's kind of hard to get families. I found a family that is excellent and very welcoming. So we got our first family already. And that took just a day. So if you know somebody that you think would like to host an exchange student, we're going to have 2 this coming year. Please just put it forward. But isn't that cool? that's a big change. I've been asking for it for years, that we would start working with African nations, and we're gonna have our first this year. Congratulations to us all. And by the way, the district will fund the extra cost of that. And how about this? How about if we do a tailgate party over at Annalee High School on the field, well, off the field, and we do that and we watch Sarah play. I've been there, it's awesome, and dress warmly, but we've got a couple of dates. This month, the 24th, that's a Tuesday. Your team is playing, and I think it is, yeah, Maria Carrillo. And so come to that. It's going to be at 7 o'clock, and we'll send out an announcement and a reminder. But we'll want you to kind of check in and say, yes, I want to come, because I'm going to apply the visa. And this is in little part to start Sarah off on fundraising to do a very important activity that Rotary Exchange can participate in. It's the
Western Safari trip at the end of the year.
Western Safari trip, where she and other students will travel around the western part of the United States together, building relationships that will last a long time. It costs, I don't know, $2,800, something like that. So if you come to the tailgate party, I'll supply the pizza and the drinks. And I think, you know, we'll just meet in the parking lot, have a good time. Do that. It'll be Hippa's Ass Pizza and you know, a variety of drinks, some of them warm, you know, cocoa, coffee, that sort of thing. And we'll have a good time, and we can cheer on the Annalee Tigers varsity team as they went their way toward a championship, maybe. They're called red, black, and yeah. Yeah, there's that. So if being a tailgate party at the high school, we are not allowed to use alcohol. So just be aware that, you know, if you need to imbibe, you need to do that early. Or what do you think about that, Marty? I smelled that up there. Oh, so is pot okay then? No. We can't. Okay, it's inappropriate to even think about it, isn't it? I'm sorry. Okay, I'll shut up now.
Thank you, David. And we also, the 2nd of February will be the, I guess, the final game, won't it? So. Oh, wow. So you have a shot at the championship?
For right now, yeah. We'll see. We're playing probably the best teams right now in that area. All new private schools and stuff. So it's hard, but we're doing it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sarah. It's great to have you here. Oh, go ahead.
This is always a fun question. How does your playing here compared to back home?
Thank you. For sure, it's different for what I'm used to. So I'm used to playing club. You don't really play through schools in Denver, so it's all club based. It's really, really serious in some weird way, but then not. There's like a lot of pressure on you. Oh, it's high school sport, you have to be good. It's like important, you make it to the playoffs. And our team, unfortunately, there's just been a lot of drama with our soccer team this year. Our coach has not been great, unfortunately, which happens. And we've had a lot of injuries. But I mean, the soccer is still the same. There's just some words that are different. Like I have to get used to, like, English soccer terminology, which is really weird for me. Soccer words, I'm like, I don't know what you're doing, what you want me to do. But otherwise, it's pretty normal from what I'm used to, but I normally play all year long, not just like a winter one. So
you're a starter.
I'm a starter, yeah. Normally, yeah, that's awesome. I won't be a starter back.
You're good at it.
I'm just curious, in high school soccer, are tackles allowed, like they, where they go sliding on the grass, like. Slide on it.
You're allowed to slide tackle. One thing that's different is I'm not really allowed to yell at the ref as much as I'm allowed to them. I have been told a lot of times to be quiet by my coach because there's something. I haven't gotten a card. No, never that far. But
Great, thanks again. We're looking forward to seeing your games. Okay, do we have anyone who's feeling grateful today? David's grateful and so's Rod, okay.
I've got two things to feel grateful for. I haven't been around a bit. My brother took sick, got in the hospital, and because he has Alzheimer's, he needed a lot of care. With his Alzheimer's, he was so sick that he forgot how to eat, how to drink, and how to walk. And how I'm grateful was basically I nursed him back, took him back to his facility, was in there every day and working with him, and I got him eating again, I got him drinking again, and for my birthday, 3 a.m. they said, he came walking down the hall, just got up on his own and was walking, and he's been doing it ever since. He hasn't stopped. So I'm super grateful for that and really, really happy. But there's another, I kind of had a moment of gratitude thinking about Jerry, because for our project down in Mexico, we needed to send them money that we had committed to do. And Jerry spent hours and hours getting the logistics of that, of sending the money, where's it going to be sent, how do you do it? And he was doing that in Spanish and translation. And just as like, it's monumental to me. You deal with all the stuff you deal with in your regular life, and then do things like that for us. It's just like incredible. And so I think everybody owes a debt of gratitude to Jerry Mashlam. Thank you.
And thank you for being here each week. You're great. Thank you so much.
A brief piece of gratitude. I wasn't here last week because we went south to Pasadena driving and driving back, and we threaded the needle. We went from here to Santa Barbara without a drop of rain. And we came back from Pasadena through the valley on a beautiful, lovely route, I-5, without a drop of rain. So, but on every side of that trip, we're deluged. So anyway, I'm grateful for that. We got to celebrate my granddaughter's 9th birthday. So she'll be applying for college.
Thank you for that. And Ryan?
Okay, super quick one. I'm just totally grateful to just that.
So
I'm grateful because I heard from someone we did a project with before that Jerry led, some project in Tanzania. So Junior sent me an email lately saying he's interested in doing telemedicine projects, so I like all those connections. It's different kinds of projects spin off of each other. That's a great asset.
Thank you. Oh,
I actually need to back up and do an announcement. This coming Saturday, 9 a.m. at the post office, we're doing our monthly service project, and we will be, again, meeting and trimming out and adding extra mulch. I've got a trailer lined up. I'm gonna be bringing in a load of mulch. John's given us the truck to use, so we'll have, bring your tools, bring long sleeves because it's cold, closed-toed shoes, heavy boots, gloves, and good strong back and excellent attitude. Thank you.
okay.
Well, I'm grateful to the club for being able to be here and have something positive to do every week. I'm also thankful, as far as that Spanish goes, by the way, to my daughter Audrey, who has found her passion. She is got her degree in Spanish, English interpretation and translation, and is employed at Stanford Medical Center as a medical interpreter and translator, and she helped me with sending the emails, correcting Google translates from English to Spanish. He said she made it sound like it was from a real person, and so I'm very grateful to my daughter.
Thank you. Okay. All right, well, we do have the post office upcoming events this Saturday, Wednesday, Redwood Empire Food Bank on the 24th, and the second, the annual tailgate party for Sarah's for getting ready for her trip. That's going to be exciting, the safari, Western Safari. And really money. Yeah, and as David said, you could also make a contribution to the club foundation and earmark it for Sarah if you like. That way you can have it deductible. And then on Friday, we'll be having a First Friday. I don't have the place on that yet, but thank you very much.
So, as you all know,
Brothers from another month, yeah, that's figured out. Tomorrow, you could, anytime today.
so as all of you know, we have rented another story moving out of South Point. And hopefully that is going to begin on Monday. It's going to be a multi-stage process because we, first of all, have to clean out our storage shed and get rid of accumulated crap over the last 30 years. And then we're going to need to move the shelving, and then we're going to move everything over. So it's probably going to take 2 or 3 sessions. I'm going to tentatively schedule it for 9 a.m. on Monday, provided that Bill can get us the truck. So we're going to need, 4 or 5 people, and people with trucks would be nice. Monday morning at our storage unit at South Point.
Where's the new one?
The new one is at Greg Gill's property on Mill Station Road. It's right next to, right next to where the New Club keeps theirs. Yeah, it's right across the street. Yeah, exactly. I also should announce that our board approved the purchase of 20 lobster pots from the New Club. We got a pretty good deal on them, so we have lobster pots for our next lobster meeting.
Great.
So speaking of crack these lobster pieces, is February 11th is the new club's.
They need help on the 10th. cooking crab and cleaning crab on the morning of the 10th at Greg Gill's place.
Okay, great.
That's something to be grateful for. When we did our, they bought so many tickets. My table of 10 was almost all new club people. So let's buy tickets and they'll receive it.
Yeah, we'll support them. I'll get that on our calendar too. Okay, next week we have Edie Ingram, the sheriff, and this week. Eddie, excuse me. Thank you. I didn't mean to turn Eddie into Edie, but thank you. Okay, and this week we have our speaker via Zoom, Patrick Lurch, and I need some help in getting it transferred so you can see him up here.
Okay, give that man a mic.
Science or international collaboration or technology or education. It's already here in this thing called the Lotus system. And it's basically a wildlife tracking system, but it's worldwide. It's open source, and I don't give too much away to take Patrick's thunder here, but it's a really interesting collaboration. And it seems like in this day when in the Twitter sphere, everybody's got something bad to say about science or scientists. This is really science at its best, and it's a really interesting thing that they're doing. And it's there are 3 weather stations in Marin County, down near Varsha, and but I couldn't find anybody locally to talk to us about it. And Patrick Lurch volunteered to do that. He's with the Southern Sierra Research Center, I guess. And station, I'm sorry. And it's down in Isabella. And Patrick has a graduate degree in biology from Notre Dame, master's in zoology from the University of Maryland, PhD in zoology from the University of Toronto. Research and teaching, including radio tracking insects with the Department of Agriculture. At MUT, working at a large county level park system management permits, research and monitoring. And that's where we came in contact with Lotus. He's done a lot of field work, research and monitoring and data management, and at the Southern Sierra Research Station, he's leading the Lotus projects. And he's been on hobbies like hiking, camping, and cooking. So, Patrick, thank you very much for your express there. I appreciate your here from elsewhere.
Can't hear you. He's talking.
So Patrick, stand by a moment, we got some audio problem. Hey, Jim, can you unmute and test the audio? Can you hear me, Jim?
Yes, I can.
Great, so we got it, thank you.
So it's on his end.
Well, let's see, Patrick, have you got, you're using Zoom on your laptop or something like that, and you're not muted at this end. So is that, Michael, is that something where he could dial in and be heard?
You should just be able to talk like Jim Blong.
Yeah.
So he's speaking, but not coming through. Well, you could leave the session and then rejoin. That'd probably be a good thing.
Patrick, we're having troubles here. Why don't you leave the session and then rejoin it? And let's see if that straightens it out.
There he goes. I can try rejoining. Okay, what are you doing? What's I'm doing? Yeah, this is my phone. I'm monitoring chat. All right. Did the lead part. Now the rejoin part. It was going so well.
While we're waiting for this to get together, Dan, we have been there you are. We have been doing a lot. You've been doing a heck of a lot in community service, and I really appreciate it. And would you please come on up and tell us a few things about what we've accomplished?
December, we were able to not only do our regular food bank volunteer day on the fourth Wednesday of the month. Well, in fact, potatoes and onions, I think it was that day. But we also, the 1 week prior to that, were able to do a food boxing day at the food bank where we were able to pack over 5 tons of food. I think we said some of those 8,800 units in that one shift. The day prior to that, we were in front of both Furcrest and Pacific markets, and we got over $1,500 in donation and about over 1,500 pounds of food donated through those 2 locations as well. Then on Thursday, we're going to give out toys under Michael's leadership at the food bank food handout effort at St. Sebastian's Catholic Church. And at the same time, a group of us was over at the San Luis Vets building handing out food to over 200 families. And it sounds, they already had enough volunteers months earlier at the Sebastopol location, which is a good thing. The one in Santa Rosa is large handout. They do one on every Thursday. Every week there. So again, can you hear me now? So county is being helped by that as well. Thanks for having help with it. Appreciate it.
And I worked at Furcrest and I
hear me?
drink genuine people were with the food.
There he is.
He did.
I'm calling in by phone. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, it's working now.
Great. Sorry about that. Probably should have done a little more testing.
Share that video.
So as soon as we get the presentation up, we can start this
That's up to
meeting.
him.
You got it? Oh, you're good.
All right. Are you seeing my intro screen or are you seeing my notes?
Yes. Intro training.
We're seeing your intro.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you for that introduction. Sorry for the technological delays. I feel like I do this every day and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Thanks for having me today. I'm here representing the Southern Sierra Research Station, and we're a little field station up in the Kern River Valley, which is just east of Bakersfield in Southern California, so up in the mountains there. We're an organization focused on bird conservation, and I'm also representing the Partners in Flight Western Working Group. So Partners in Flight is an international collaboration focused on bird conservation across the bird's whole life cycle. So it's really an attempt to understand the problems with that are, impacts on bird populations. As many of you probably know, birds, especially migratory birds, are declining throughout the world. And so these partners in flight groups, like the Western Working Group, are focused on a region of the world and trying to really dive deeply into bird conservation in those regions. So today's talk, I'm going to try to talk about that full life cycle conservation a little bit, and then dive right into the technology. And one of the technological tools that we have has really changed the way we can follow birds across the life cycle, and that was the impetus for this Western MODIS initiative. And I'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about some applications, see some birds moving around on the West Coast, and then a little bit about how people can get involved at the end. So the whole life cycle conservation concept is really the basis of, it's kind of the crux of partners in flight groups throughout the world. They've realized that preserving birds on their breeding ground, many of these neotropical migrants, we call them, they breed in California, for example, but then they spend their winter in Latin America, and they have to migrate through the Panama Canal in many cases. So those create some unique conservation challenges, and without understanding their whole life cycle, we really can't conserve them. So we're going to continue to lose bird populations and species if we aren't careful and learn about that whole life cycle conservation. So in the past, the technologies we used for tracking animals and learning about their life cycle, the challenges that they face throughout their life cycle were, the initial one was just putting little bands on their legs. So in Britain, that's called ringing. Over here, we call it banding. And so if you ever hear of bird watchers seeing a banded bird, if you found a banded bird, or you could read the leg band colors, you would report that, and the person who put it on would get some information back about where that bird ended up. So it's a very primitive technology, but we've been using it for 100 years now. Radio telemetry came along, which allowed small enough radios to be put on birds. And these initially were only put on big birds, waterfowl and things like that. But eventually we got them small enough that we could start to track things like grouse and, birds that are big, but we could track them with these radios. Those radios are now down to, like half the weight of a nickel. So that technology has really improved. There also are relatively sort of mid-sized tags called GPS satellite tags. They basically send their GPS coordinates to a satellite via satellite phone networks and send that data home to the researchers. Those are very expensive and they can't be miniaturized much more yet. So they kind of have their own limitations. And then finally, there are these things called geolocators, which are little tags that sense the light environment, and they can tell where they are on the globe based on that information. So those are very tiny tags, can be used on migratory birds, and they're a good tool. So basically, these are the kind of historical tags, and I'm going to now pivot to talking about a new kind of tag that has some advantages over the traditional radio telemetry method. All of these are still in use and still very important for various reasons. No one technology is going to replace them all. The MODIS system is unique in the sense, well, first, I guess to understand what's unique about it, I have to explain, in the old days, a radio transmitter, every single transmitter was transmitting at a different frequency. And so you had to sit there with your receiver and change frequencies to tell if that bird was in the area. The new technology, all of them transmit on two different frequencies, one or the other, depending on which manufacturer it is. And your little receiver station just has to listen to one frequency, and the information about the bird is coded digitally. And so that's the trick behind the MODIS system. again, all of these tracking technologies are complementary and we continue to use all of them. So we have these digital radio tags that are transmitting on the same frequency. And then we build what we call MODIS stations that operate continuously with up to 8 directional antennas. They detect the basically birds within a 7-mile radius or so of those antennas. And you can see these are directional antennas, so they really detect 7 miles in one direction. That's why you often put up multiple antennas. They have high temporal and geographic precision, so they know the bird was there, and they know when it was there precisely because they're basically getting GPS satellite time information. So within seconds, they can pinpoint a bird. And one of the big advantages here, the geolocators that I mentioned, you have to recapture the bird and get the data off the little tag. In these cases, the data is basically captured by the station. So this is the modis.org organization. Their logo is in the upper right, is sponsored by Birds Canada. And they are the ones that started this. You'll see some more information about that in a minute. But it's an international collaboration. It's worldwide now. It's common community infrastructure. It's open source in a lot of ways, as my introduction mentioned. There's a centralized database that's permanently archived and it's publicly accessible. And there's a program, and then, you know, as I said, this is sponsored by Bird Studies Canada, and many other international organizations now are contributing to it because they realize it's the kind of thing, you know, if you build it, every additional station brings benefits to multiple people at once. So this is just a representation of the system. I mentioned that centralized database that's sponsored by Birds Canada. And then, you know, there are groups of researchers like those people represented in the picture here. They build a station and they tag birds. Those birds then are picked up not only at their station, but at other stations as they move through, you know, the network. And those stations phone home and send the data to the central database. So then researchers can then do conservation science using that data. They get information on their own birds, but they also get information on other birds that are coming through their area. So that's the basis of MODIS. So MODIS started in 2014, and by 2017, basically based on the sheer effort of Birds Canada and multiple academic organizations, a large number of stations were running by 2017, almost 500 by that time. And, you know, they'd already accomplished quite a lot by 2017, but if you notice, very little information was getting captured about Western birds. There's a huge lack of stations on the West Coast, and there's various reasons for that that we'll talk about. So there's a lack of coverage that's, and as a result, very few studies. There were fewer studies overall, as I'll say in a minute, of migratory birds in the West. There's a lot of information on birds in the East compared to the West. And one of the main reasons why MODIS and even migratory bird studies in general were not being done at the same rate is we just have topography out here. You know, the East Coast has, they like to say the Appalachian Mountains are tall, but they're nothing compared to the kinds of things that, you know, the Rockies and the Sierras present. So it's challenging topography. And so that's been one of the things holding us up. So here's what the picture looked like in 2017. You can see there's like 8 stations in the West. I'll just mention this study briefly. The black on this represents the topography, so you can sort of see our unique challenge in the West. And then the areas outlined are basically areas that have been identified by existing studies, the small number that have been done in the West. And you know, Eastern birds also pass through these areas. So those studies highlight these areas as important stopovers and important bottlenecks, places where conservation is even more important because most of the birds have to go there. So, when we think of whole life cycle conservation, we know about them on the breeding ground. We need to study where they stop over on their migratory pathways, and there's different kinds of stopovers. And then we also need to focus on bottlenecks because those are areas where if conservation is not done, many bird species are going to be impacted. So the Partners in Flight approach is whole life cycle conservation, and it turns out that that's really what MODIS is designed for. So there's very easy coordination and collaboration in this network, and it helps us hopefully to solve these really complex conservation problems. We're hoping, Partners in Flight in particular is hoping to expand the scope and spatial scale of the questions to all phases of those birds' life cycles. They want to focus monitoring around local and regional questions, but because you're building these stations, we want to build them in such a way that they serve other researchers at the same time. So the goals then are to provide better information to assess threats. Many of you are hearing every day about the increased threats that are facing humans as well as birds. There's increased changes in surface and water temperatures. We feel that particularly here in the Southwest. There's less water in the Intermountain West in general, although this year, hopefully we'll turn that back a little bit. There's increased temperatures that can lead to forest dieback, and we certainly see that here in California. And then we have these long fire seasons, and both forests and grasslands are impacted by those. Ocean acidification, we don't really understand the impacts of that, but certainly on ocean birds, that's going to have a big effect. So the Western Bird Initiative, as I mentioned, started in 2018. So my boss, Mary Whitfield, and other people involved in the Western Working Group looked at this map and said, this isn't going to be good. We have to start to build MODIS out here. And since 2018, interest has snowballed. And the pictures here, the new ones represent the MODIS stations. And so we build different kinds of stations for different applications, but you can see in this case, we have a tripod in the upper left. That's kind of a standalone thing that's solar powered. Sometimes those are built on rocks. Sometimes these are able to be attached to buildings, and so those are represented by the other pictures. So I want to show a quick animation of the growth of MODIS just since 2018. And so I'll do that here. And you can see it's not just growing in the West, but the West has certainly filled in a great deal. So, in those 5 years or whatever that is, we've accomplished quite a lot. All right, so now we're up to over 1,200, and these numbers are kind of hard to track because, in the time since I wrote this slide, there might be more stations, and certainly there are millions more detections going on, especially down in the south and central parts of the network. Okay, so the priorities for MODIS are filling these strategic gaps in coverage, especially to do that whole life cycle conservation. We want to encourage international collaborations. We want to ensure the longevity of the network. One of the real key things that aligns well with what you guys do, I think, are these ideas that we have to really involve some of our international partners. And in this case, that means Latin America. If you think about those bottlenecks, if we don't involve, Central American countries in this effort, we are going to lose a lot of information that's critical to this effort. And, just in terms of putting the little radio tags on birds, if you do it in those areas, you can access all the birds, right? Whereas they spread out as they get to North America or Northern North America. So we're in the process of trying to strategically plan more stations, and especially emphasizing the Global South. Just to give you one example of a recent effort, this was a collaboration between Point Blue, the Nature Conservancy, and California Department of Fish and Wildlife. We helped build out 14 new stations in North America. And I think we're actually up to almost 20 because the state partners have continued to add stations after we stopped with the TNC Point Blue project. But these were chosen based on a specific project to look at shorebirds that use California as a wintering ground, and then they go up north to breed, and I'll show an example of that in a second. So you can sort of see, you know, I apologize for cutting off your part of California, but there's definitely a lot of new stations in your area. And that's going to continue to expand. The state just got money to put in 40 more stations. So this project had money for 89 tags, and they actually, I think I showed just a small example here. They got up to almost 70 tags last year. They're going to put some more out this year. And they're put out on a bunch of shorebirds. Dunlin, long-billed dowitchers, and least sandpipers are their targets. And those are the ones that use those rice fields and wetland areas in the Central Valley. So let me do another animation here just to show where some of those birds went over the course of the last year. And the cool thing about the MODIS project is these are all accessible to you. You can figure out a way to log into modis.org and check out all these tracks yourself if you'd like. You can see we're gaining a ton of information about how these shorebirds use the Central Valley in California. All right, since we're short on time, I'll show you that we didn't just learn about what they did in California. If we expand that view out a little bit, and this again is on the MODIS website, we can see that those shorebirds by summertime were pretty much all up in Alaska. You can also see from this picture that we don't know what happened north of Vancouver until they got to the Gulf of Alaska, where we happened to just in time get a couple of stations put in. So that was really great that we got those Alaskan stations in time to see the birds all show up there. All right, so that's the example that I wanted to show. Now just to do a couple of things to indicate what people can do to help with this. MODIS stations are definitely a priority still, especially in Central and South America. We're focusing a lot on training people throughout the region. So we run workshops, we invite people to help us install and things like that. We're trying to find funding for coordinated tagging efforts, and that's a little bit more of a challenge because historically people have just done their own research projects, but we're now encouraging people to, when they apply for grants, put in extra money to give to a Central and South American partner to tag birds down there for your project. And that helps build capacity and also is often quite effective for the project. We need more funding for non-breeding bird research in the US. And, most of these birds leave the US when they're in their wintering grounds. So that's challenging. And then there's outreach that we're always doing with groups like yourselves and other groups throughout the country and throughout the world. So just to mention a few groups that are doing this work that can always use people's time and money donations. We're one. Paso Pacifico is a group that's funding stations and upkeep in El Salvador and Nicaragua. I think they're centered in Santa Barbara. We have the Klamath Bird Observatory. They're doing a lot of great work in the north, up on the Oregon border. Pro Natura Noreste is working in Northwest Mexico, and we have a partnership with them to get them equipment. And then the Nature Conservancy is certainly very actively involved in Central Valley shorebird conservation right now.
Okay, thank you.
Please join us. Yeah.
We are out of time now, but this was terrific. Thank you so much. I'm sorry to cut you off, and I'm sorry we had a problem in the beginning with getting you up. You're just about done there, are you? I'm hoping. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Pat.
All right, thank you. And if you want this slideshow, let me know and I'll send you a copy because I kind of had to go through it quickly.
Okay, great, thank you. I appreciate that and very interesting. That was a terrific presentation. I'm sorry we didn't have more time for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's what I'm working on.
There you are. We were there.
The
Good. Thank you. Okay, it's time for adjournment. I'm sorry, we're just a few minutes over today. Where is, there's my man. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, there's quite a stack of money in there this time.
Okay, here comes the big winner. By the way, everybody, there seems to be some controversy about how much these guys cost. They cost $1 each. Okay, that's it. $1 each. And the winner is 38.16. You said 16.
No red marble. Jerry, do we know how much is in that pot now? Make them. It's okay, great, thank you, Jerry. Okay, yeah, do you have a joke for us? Oh.
Scott was telling me about these sculpting and model work and all that. Such a range of interests and talents and stuff. By the time people now that you're doing raising chickens, your interests have just become a little bit more eccentric.
Looks like I should have had.
Joke number 2. Why do dyslexic sailors prefer seafood before bad weather is forecast? It's the clam before the storm.
Thank you so much. Okay, it's time for happy trails.
Goodbye.